Time is the most common noun in the English language. It is the most common subject of our discussions, our day-to-day talkings about time. We have so many sayings about time. Look at the time. Have you got the time? There's never enough time. I haven't got the time. Time is not on our side. Time is the enemy of the artist. Every second I spend thinking, more time passes and is gone. We are all but passengers on a train barreling forward, looking backwards in nostalgia at where the train has been, but we cannot peek forwards. We cannot see where the train is going next. All the steam and smoke from the engine obscures it. It's a mysterious journey, time. We measure time, we measure it in seconds, in minutes, in hours. We wear it on our wrists. It dominates our day-to-day lives. In bigger terms, we think of time in days, weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, millennia, eons. Let's go a bit smaller than eons. Eons are irrelevant to us, but calendars are where we plan our years. One such type of calendar is an advent calendar. Now the name comes from a Christian use of advent I'm not too familiar with. For commercial purposes, an advent calendar is generally a thin cardboard and plastic oblong containing 24 doors, and behind those 24 doors are 24 little pieces of chocolate. It gives children who don't have that full understanding of time some perspective of when Christmas might be. It's finally December. It feels like it's been your whole life, but it's not Christmas yet. Not until you've opened all 24 doors on the Advent calendar. Christmas time. Time of shopping, time of snow on things, I suppose, in the Northern Hemisphere. Down here it's the time of prawns and summer storms and hailstones and cricket. And then after December, those advent calendars are gone, and we get back on with our lives, and it's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Advent calendars again. It's a cycle, it just keeps going. But every year's advent calendar is a little bit different. They put different drawings on the doors. Different makers think of different things. There are now Lego advent calendars and Hot Wheels advent calendars and advent calendars full of alcohol for adults. All sorts of things. You could put anything in an advent calendar, I suppose. You can make an advent calendar TV show. That's a big thing in the Nordic countries. I made an advent calendar series out of this advent calendar game. A game about time, a very certain portion of time. But now's the time for me to go to bed. And I'll get back to this in the morning. So, now is the time of the morning. What am I supposed to be doing? Right. Games Advent Calendar 2024. That's what we're here for. What if you made an advent calendar out of video games? Presents Games Advent Calendar 2024. Thanks for rejoining me, monologue skippers. We're now all closer to the part where I get to the point. There are 2 modes. They offer all the same games with the same scoring systems, but in the full experience, you get the added ritual of waiting until the assigned day in December to be able to start the game. Now, waiting for the right days of December is a reasonable expectation for an advent calendar, but that did not work in my circumstances because I wanted to play it in November in advance so I could make videos for those days. The daily upload schedule was a slog and required tedious effort throughout December anyway, with recordings done in 3 batches. If I had to do 25 setups and launch the game 25 times and transfer files every day of December, it would have taken far too long. And this is a very time-consuming and boring process. But I love making videos, mostly when they're finished. After an unusually long loading screen for PS5 standards, you're introduced to the hub world, a snowy European village with a Christmas train that stops at many stations. On the first station, you choose your character, one of 8 avatars. Frosty, but not the Frosty the Snowman, Eve, an ice princess, Sir Chip, a nutcracker, presumably from the Nutcracker, Dasher, the reindeer, Spirit, the fox from Spirit of the North. It's a single-player platformer about a cute fox based on Icelandic folklore, not to be confused with the much, much cuter fox from Never Alone, which is a 2-player platformer based on native Alaskan Inupiaq folklore. I just found out both of these games have upcoming sequels that were announced a few years ago but still have no release dates. So I better finish those games. Next, out of nowhere, we've got well-known Christmas character Grandpa Joe, a rabbit called Bowie, and a kid called Charlie. So I guess we are just taking names from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, Bowie was the obvious choice for me because I'm a big fan of David Bowie and Zwo Si in Dynasty Warriors. If you trick other people into playing this game with you, this is the part where you'll be making more in-game profiles shared on one controller profile. Up to 8 players can play any of this game's minigames, taking turns with one controller. And if you do have a party of 8, you'll fully exhaust the game's supply of avatars and profile icons. And I can imagine, especially in a full group of 8, there'd be a real serious competitive land rush for those icons because several people are going to want to be the car or the gamer and nobody will want the hurdles, but you'll all have to compromise. Now, with all that out of the way, can we just move on to the games? Hoofdstuk 3 te spelen. Yes, these games are Dutch, developed by Dender Games in the Netherlands and published by Mindscape. Not the American Mindscape that developed and published Lego Island and went defunct many years ago, but the almost unrelated Dutch publishing branch, which has released other advent calendar games on Steam, I just found out. And also a horse game. But this first game is Holiday Adventures. That's a 2D platformer. Starring 2D Bowie the Bunny, and unlike the 3D model, you'll notice there's no purple ring around the left eye, because this way, the sprite can be flipped and no one will notice it change sides, even though, when it's extremely noticeable, like in a Sagat mirror match, no one cares. In Holiday Adventures, your goal is to reach the end of the screen in less than 5 minutes. Along the way, you can pick up lollies worth 10 points, and big lollipops worth 50. You can slide down or up huge slabs of ice in this confusing world. Doesn't make any sense. Why would I bounce off a geyser? And why is a geyser in the air on a floating platform? Where's the water coming from? And why are there so many deadly icicles everywhere? Well, okay, I can excuse those. They're for gameplay. But I have big environmental questions raised by these trees. Why are there Brazil nut trees sticking out amongst the spruce trees of the taiga? That makes no sense, I say as I watch an indomitable snowball smash through 4 walls of solid ice before exploding. Well, that makes sense. It's enchanted to not follow Newton's laws. But it has to explode after a certain amount of time, because there's only so much magical energy it can have. And if it didn't explode after a time limit, if it just kept on going, since it's a clearly completely unstoppable snowball, it would destroy planets, and that's bad. So yeah, Holiday Adventures, it's a party game, you could press square to run faster, whoever picks up the most lollies wins. The second game is Holly Jolly Slices. It's not a recipe, it's a game! Have a Holly Jolly Slicing. It's Fruit Ninja. Just a Fruit Ninja clone. With very unusually chosen sound effects. Alright, the bonbons snap like twigs, as do the gingerbread men, the oranges go swish, the lollipop snaps. The snowflake makes a massive slam and shatter sound. I'd understand if it made a little shattering, like a small piece of glass, but there's this huge thud with it. Like a golf club smashing a tube TV. like shattering a car's windshield with an ice skate, like a glass-shelved freezer with moderate ice buildup having a decisive meeting with a Besser block. Whatever the actual source of this Foley sound is, it is not the sound of a snowflake. As you saw there, if you touch a bomb, you lose the game. And everything else is worth 1 point, except for a star. When you hit one of those, you go wicka 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 with a stick and try to hit it as many times as you can. Get lots of points. Did you know Fruit Ninja is an Australian game? In terms of revenue, it's probably the second most successful thing to ever come out of Brisbane, behind the Bee Gees. Why is this taking so long? What are you doing? Thought SnakeOfBacon. Why is this Christmas episode being made in mid-January? It's not Christmas anymore. Christmas was a while ago. It ended early January. It is now not relevant. We're all getting out of Christmas, back to a sense of normalcy. And if this video takes much longer, it'll be an early Christmas episode, ridiculously early for 2025. Our third game is Gift Rush. Feel the rush. If you don't trip over the first obstacle and die, Gift Rush is a game about jumping over things and sliding under some other things while picking up coins and presents. It's a very simple game. I'm sure you don't need a talking head to explain what its inspirations may have been, but I did ask a specialist to come by anyway. I think just about everyone in this day and age is familiar with the Google Chrome dinosaur game, but it was inspired by Bit Trip Runner and a few other games about ducking under things and jumping rhythmically. It's a very old concept. So it's a normal jumping and sliding game. Oh, with one small twist. The sliding is optional. Yeah, you can just run under the hurdles even though they pass through your head. My best score was 301 points before I slammed groin first into a snowman, and that's the end of Gift Rush.
Barbecue's ready.
The fourth game is Snowball Blast. This snowball fight game takes the form of a shooting gallery. Basically Murhun, or Crazy Chicken, but with snowballs.
The snowball fights are usually quite dynamic, at least in films. Generally the people throwing the snowballs are also moving about. There's a two-way interplay, and as a shooting gallery game, those are generally more about recreational hunting of ducks, where the shooter would stay still. So making a shooting gallery out of throwing snowballs is so much not a snowball fight, but a snowball menace.
Snowball Blast is asymmetric. I'm an antisocial snow sniper, hurling frozen snow at great speeds at people who are just minding their own business and trying to walk, except for Frosty, who's clearly begging to have a throwball snowed at him. A snowball thrown at him. What else can I say? It's a shooting gallery with bizarre aim. Why is it so hard to hit some people when it looks like the reticle is aligned properly? I don't know. It's not a particularly good shooting gallery game. And who do I have to blame for that? The Dutch. Well, not all of the Dutch, just the employees of Dender Games. But who are the Dutch, anyway? What do you picture when you think Dutch thoughts?
Have you seen my new shoes? They are made out of wood.
There's a bit more to it than that. The Dutch come from a place that has had many names and a lot of history. The Netherlands. It's not Dutchland. That would be Deutschland, which is Germany. And we're talking about Nederland, which is what the people of the Netherlands call the Netherlands. It's also often referred to as Holland in English, but to be specific, Holland is just a region, consisting of the two provinces of North and South Holland, and not the whole country. The name Low Countries refers to the land being really low. Much of it's below sea level and the highest point is lower than Tamworth. But why countries, not just country? Because there are two other low countries, Belgium and Luxembourg. Belgium makes excellent waffles and has the only 13:15 ratio flag in the world. Luxembourg makes up the Lux part of Benelux and is home to 668,000 people and 55,000 dairy cows. Luxembourg makes much more wine than the Netherlands and confuses people with its very similar, slightly longer, slightly brighter flag. That's not the most confusing thing about the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. How about this? It borders the Belgian province of Luxembourg. Yes, there are two Luxembourgs, and the Belgian one's bigger. This is confusing. Let's just go to the fifth game. Bobsleigh Relay. Well, this just wouldn't be a Winter Olympics game without bobsleigh. And it isn't a Winter Olympics game for many other reasons. Now, this is not the usual 2 or 4 person bobsleigh, but the relatively new sport of monobob. And in it, you'll be sliding down the bobsleigh course, going over boost pads and avoiding patches of thick blue ice. And there are no brakes. Instead of using brakes, you can slow down the flow of time with your magic powers, refilled by waiting a little while or picking up the green stopwatches. Now, while I was playing, I thought that this didn't actually affect the timer at all and only the rabbit, but I see now in editing that it makes 1 second last about 136 frames. But I think it's also slowing down the sleigh by a greater factor, meaning there's no advantage to using slow motion. So rather than turn it on to avoid an obstacle, you should probably just take the hit and keep riding. I always found my fastest runs were the ones where I didn't touch R2. Now, there are some problems here. The sleigh, I imagine, would fly off and run into the trophy, and if this is actually a bobsleigh relay race, my poor teammate has to push the bobsleigh back up the course, which is very, very difficult, I imagine. Or why else is it called a relay? There's nothing relay about a bobsleigh race. You can't have a bobsleigh relay. What are you going to do? Jump out of the sled and let someone else jump in while it's sliding down at a checkpoint? That's the only other way you could do it. You certainly can't ride back up the course. I suppose it's a relay because, like all the other games in this collection, it's a relay of passing the controller to other players to take turns. But that's just taking turns. That's just how bobsleigh works. You don't race 2 sleighs down the same course. Everyone takes turns. That's just sensible. This whole thing's not sensible. Why am I worrying about what's sensible? Let's move to the next game. Trackmania also has bobsleigh courses, which are the bane of my existence, but that's not the next game. Do you like crossing the road? How about Polar Cross? Alright, well, despite choosing Bowie the Bunny, now I'm a snowman. No matter which avatar you choose, you're always the snowman in Polar Cross. And the snowman always jumps with his left foot forward. Are you trying to cross the train tracks or do ollies on an invisible skateboard? I don't understand this strange animation. So, it's a game about crossing ice floes and fields of inexplicable, unstoppable snowballs and far too many train tracks, with the aim of not being killed and exploding into a flurry of coins and some wings. I don't know. Is that some deeper meaning there about money and the afterlife and the existence of snowman ghosts? I don't know. I don't think there's any particular meaning here. I just think that this is yet another Australian mobile game that has been repurposed for Games Advent Calendar. First it was Fruit Ninja to be Holly Jolly Slices, and now Crossy Road by Hipster Whale has become Polar Cross. If we really want to start with Netherlands, we should go back to a time before there were any borders. 50,000 years ago, the area was inhabited by Neanderthals who ate cave hyenas. And other things, obviously, that are easier to eat than a hyena, like seeds and berries. And now, Holiday Adventures 2! The sequel! On the 7th of December, this Christmas train has run out of ideas already. Yep, we're just doing Holiday Adventures again, but with more features, such as a pickaxe. Right, I've broken the pickaxe out of the ice. What do I do with the pickaxe, you may be wondering? Well, you don't dig, you throw the pickaxe. And that's fine because you have more pickaxes. Note the number in the bottom left. Once it reaches 0, you still have more pickaxes. There is no limit. Holiday Adventures 2 also introduces an enemy, which appears to be a giant ibuprofen capsule. It's slightly too short to throw pickaxes at, so jump on it or completely ignore it. Both are fine. There's another flag in a sack for an ending. That's what you do. You don't even go past the flag, you just jump up there and freeze. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens and cave hyenas continued chilling out and presumably eating each other as the world chills down to the last glacial maximum when the cave hyena goes extinct. Tribes of people continue to live around the place for many thousands of years, and written history starts when Gaul is conquered by Gaius Julius Caesar in 55 BCE. At the top of Gaul, in the part that will go on to be Belgium and the Netherlands, there are many Roman forts and towns built along the River Vaal. Xmas. Wrong way. Xmas. Xmas. Tetrixmas. Tetrixmas. Tetrix. Well, this does appear to be Tetris, but for legal reasons, we've changed the S to Christmas. That will work, thought the developers and publishers of Games Advent Calendar 2024. You know, I don't think that's how it works. In fact, I know that is not how it works. Sure, Tetris is old, in video game terms very old. It's the 40th anniversary of Tetris this year. But that doesn't mean you can just release your own Tetrises without asking the Tetris company. They manage the intellectual property. Tetris is an official product, and this unofficial Tetris is pretty much exactly the same as an official Tetris. The same 10x20 playfield, the same familiar tetrominos, soft dropping and hard dropping. Don't ask me which rotation system it uses, I'm not really a Tetris expert. And there's also a hold piece function, so you can keep a piece and swap it out later when you need it. Useful for when there's a long space and you have a long one, and then you throw it in the side and score a Tetris. Or 4 lines at once. We won't call it scoring a Tetris here because this isn't Tetris, even though it is. And if the Tetris company finds out, they are quite litigious, you know, so this could be the whole Advent calendar's downfall. They'll have to take it out and replace it with Christmas columns or something. If this game's Advent calendar finds itself digitally delisted in the near future, don't worry, there's a PS5 disc edition. This game has a physical release, and if that's the only way to get it, it'll be worth... it won't even be worth as much as it sells for now, but that's okay. What's next? Mile High Taxi. Should I even make a review of this game? I suppose I need to warn people. Mile High Taxi on PS5 was a great idea, but it is extremely unfinished and unpolished. The actual next game is Arctic Circle Skater. 3, 2, 1, go! Go, buddy, go, go, go! Go, skate! Skate around the Arctic Circle!
Ice skating is
You use the shoulder buttons, R1 and L1, to rhythmically tap when the feet are in the green zone.
Matt Damon.
Though the exact timing took a while for me to understand, and I had some difficulty getting Bowie the Bunny to start skating. Once you figure out that rhythm though, and its unusual tempo changes, moving isn't too much of a problem. As I'd had so much difficulty though, I did unearth a really weird problem with the timer. Once it reaches 1 minute, the first minute is added to the minutes field, but the seconds keep going up from 60. 1 minute 66 seconds and counting. 1 minute and 70 seconds. It's really just 70 seconds or 1 minute 10. But this oddity left me with a first lap time of 1 minute 77.945, which is not how minutes and seconds work, but let's not expect so much expert programming from Arctic Circle Skater. Besides, this is a fantasy game. I'm a rabbit skating around a bright magenta lake in the Arctic Circle with snow-topped trees and massive candy cane light posts, one of which is in a tree. It's fine. Maybe in this fantasy world, 1 minute 77.945 is a valid way of expressing time. My second lap was 30.914, and that was actually the last lap. But there's 3 laps. Oh well, I did a second run, and I can verify when you finish lap 2, because it starts lap 3, the lap counter is full, and that's done. Fantasy programming. Fantastic. I should be playing EDF. Frostbreaker. Another clone of an old classic. Atari's Breakout is even older than Tetris. It'll be turning 49 years old this year. And if we're talking about Breakout clones, that's good, because Breakout was the game that helped shape video game copyright laws. We just turned down the glass smashing a little bit. We'll skip over the development and how Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak are related to that. When Atari went to register Breakout for copyright about 10 years after it was released, the Register of Copyrights in the United States denied it because apparently you couldn't just make a copyright claim on simple blocks bouncing around because that wasn't a creative work. It took a long series of appeals and 2 important decisions by Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg, before she was on the Supreme Court, to decide that video games, even with a tiny amount of creativity to their concept, are creative works and are protected from clone games that would seek to capitalize on their original ideas. And that decision has not been very effective in stopping thousands of Breakout clones from hitting the market, or many other things. With Tetris, it's a little bit more clear-cut. It's very obvious when something is a Tetris clone, what with all the exact tetrominos and the game systems of the rotating and all that. But Breakout, it's a ball and paddle genre. You know, what is a Breakout clone? Space Invaders was inspired by Breakout, and it has some similarities, but it's fairly different. And Frostbreaker, this too has a few differences to Breakout. Not nearly as many as a really good Breakout-like game, like DX Ball 2 or Super DX Ball, but, you know, it's Breakout plus loud smashing noises, making it different. I think a big part of it comes down to, could Atari be bothered suing 3,000 different game developers who have made Breakout clones? Probably not. Hey, you like Eggs Benedict? How about game number 11? Holiday Adventures 3. Another sequel. I think I'd rather have the Eggs Benedict. I mean, that's true in just about every case, but what's the unique feature of Holiday Adventures 3? Torches. When you're close to them, the world is bright. And when you're far away, the world is dark. That's it. It's just another Holiday Adventures level. Let's just move to 12. Arctic Climb! We're gonna climb. We're not climbing a mountain. It's Donkey Kong. With Krampus. It's Donkey Krampus. Take your pickaxe, brave rabbit, or human, or fox, or reindeer, and climb this structure to rescue the bag of gifts from Krampus, who is throwing many rolling snowballs. The pickaxe is not a throwing weapon this time, it's a short-range melee weapon that you can break snowballs with. Well, there were just too many in a row there. I don't think there was any way I could dodge that. Well, this, you could say, is different enough from the original Donkey Kong that it's an homage and not copyright infringement at all. It's also not something I want to be playing. None of this is something I want to be doing. I want to do other things, but I'm here, you know. I've put too much time into this to not finish it. And how about the time now? It's February. I'm making a Christmas special in February. I really have to get this thing finished.
Snowdrift Racers! We're getting 3D with this one. Oh yeah, Macho Madness.
Alright, finally, some real action.
Oh yeah.
You might have been falling asleep before, but this is, yeah. Save the good stuff for half an hour in. What keeps happening to the sound effect, you may be wondering? Well, This race car only has a 7-second loop of motorcycle sounds, which cuts to silence and then fades back in. It's really fascinating. It's possibly the most careless sound design work I've ever encountered, because this game is just that unimportant to its creators. But it's pretty much funny, you know. So is crashing into nothing and then continuing. Like, I have no idea what's going on with Snowdrift Races, but it works better than a lot of the other games in the collection. It's more entertaining, so I'll give it a pass on its awful sound. It's unfortunate too that there's no synchronous multiplayer, no split screen, only taking turns of driving 3 laps each of Snowdrift Racer's one and only course. It's not Sega Rally, but by comparison with its stablemate, Snowdrift Races is glorious. Game over, yeah! Frost Runner, do you like slop content? Yes, the man madly and sarcastically nods. Well, do you like slop content? I meant to say sludge, though. Slop content includes any low-effort videos made quickly for mass consumption, whether that's just quick news reactions or the lowest form, AI-generated media. But sludge is another category of overstimulating, generally vertical videos found on YouTube Shorts, but also Instagram and other wildly popular apps that I do not want to speak the name of and will never use. And yes, maybe I am on a bit of a hypocritical high horse as someone who does make the odd occasional YouTube short, mostly as a way to promote my horizontal YouTube longs, which are of superior quality, and I will sit on this high horse and I will look down disdainfully at vertical garbage. Did you know aluminium? That's sludge. There are millions of hours of this garbage all over the internet, and they are boosted by algorithms because that is the meta. You don't go finding these videos, they find you. Especially on vertical video platforms where people hardly ever search and just flick through a feed to see what the algorithm gives you next. The sludge content is going to rise to the top because people look at it for longer. Because it's hypnotically soothing. The same as all those oddly satisfying videos for adults of people cutting soap, and the entire market of videos made for children under 10. Bright and colourful and loud, and lots of symmetry and simple patterns. Anything that reminds you of preschool, basically. That keeps people staring. It lets them turn off, it lets them unplug from the worries of the modern world. It's so very easy to get lulled into doom scrolling to avoid having to think about your economic future or any other worries you might have in the day because you're distracted by endless Tube Runner gameplay and split screen with an AI voice reading someone's stories from Reddit, and your mind is off. There are much healthier ways to turn the front of your mind off than short videos. Exercise for half an hour. Or play a good video game and exercise the back of your brain. Or read a book. Or get lost on Wikipedia. No, maybe that one's not such a good idea, it's just what I keep doing. In any case, although these colourful 3D endless runners are popular targets for sludge content, the games aren't at fault.
Well, endless runner games really take their gameplay from simple lane-changing games played on handheld LCD games from the 80s and 90s, and by the 2000s these were available as fast food restaurants, children's toys. Unbelievably, this one still has power. The batteries are still working more than a decade, far more than a decade after its use. I honestly was not expecting this to work, but while I can't play it, I think you can appreciate the gameplay is exactly what we're talking about here. Just the curious things we have in this little museum. Really should clean the dust off this one. Yes. Trademark and copyright KFC 2008. There are earlier examples of these. 2008. Yes, 16 years that battery has lasted.
Bobsleigh Relay 2, now with more turns? More difficult turns? More obstacles? It's another sequel game. This is what it is. Bobsleigh Relay 2 is the sequel to the critically acclaimed Bobsleigh Replay, now with more snow, far more boost pads, and more red and white barriers. I'd say it's a huge improvement over Bobsleigh Relay 1 because it's more bobsleigh, you know? There's more of it. It has a moreness to it. And it's quite moreish, like coconut peanuts. You think at first, oh well, this won't be that good, and then you have some and you realise, I think I have a bit more. More bobsleigh wouldn't be so bad. I wouldn't mind a third one. Actually, no, I've had plenty, thanks. What's next? Gift Stacker. Do you like scams? Do you like Stacking Machine? What did I do? Okay. Do you like pressing a button for the potential of winning an iPod Shuffle? I'll go on to those days. You can't get an iPod Shuffle anymore, but yeah, maybe I should look more at the camera. Gift Stacker. We've moved on from classic home console video games to a classic money trap of the arcade variety, often seen outside cinemas with, as I said before, iPod Shuffles inside, and other prizes that you might win in a stacker. Now these things are usually rigged. Not only do they get faster at the top, but sometimes, well, almost always, they skip over the possible winning outcome unless they are in a winnable state. That's just how these things are. Much like skill tester machines, they're not a test of skill. They're a test of, are you there at the right time to receive the prize? But let's not be cynical about how arcade machines make money. This stacker is much fairer than the arcade game and can be won even if you make little mistakes. But there's no prize for doing it fast, except a bronze PlayStation trophy. I like those. I'm doing fake lightning flashes, because the real lightning flashes aren't enough to illuminate me. This is filmmaking. 17. What's in the door? Holiday Adventures 4. Come on. It's only 25 games and you had to make a 4th Holiday Adventures. Well, what do we have this time? Breakable wooden platforms and an emphasis on wall jumps. And not using one wall to jump onto the opposite wall, but just jumping repeatedly up one wall. Which should be impossible, but I am a rabbit. Although Grandpa Joe can probably do this too. Oh, my favourite bit of music in the game is playing. Generic, smooth, jazzy piece. I'll talk more on the soundtrack later. Main features of Holiday Adventures 4 are, thwomps from Mario? Hope they don't sue. And too many arrows. Just so many arrows. Pointing at everywhere you could possibly go. And why are these things so pointy on the corners? It's Winter Pong. That's the actual title. is what it is. This is just Pong with an ice hockey theme. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Winter Pong's here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. I'm so sick of hearing the bells. Anyway, the CPU opponent is very difficult, but thankfully you don't have to beat it to get a trophy or anything. What's the expert opinion on Winter Pong?
Well, Winter Pong, there's no hiding it, it's Pong. But you don't want me to talk about Pong. I know you don't want me to talk about Pong. Don't get me started on Pong.
Well, bereft of any dry historical insight, I will tell you one thing I hate about this particular Pong. How quickly the puck disappears. You don't get to see it ever cross the goal line, so no goal feels legitimate. You just blink and then suddenly you're down a point and you'll have no idea why. Or down 2 points, 1.5 seconds apart. I don't think I like this Winter Pong. I think I'll stick with good puck games like Hat Trick and Windjammers. Okay, so the Netherlands. The Romans ruled that area for about 450 years. And after the fall of the Roman Empire, the Celts moved back in from wherever they were. The Gauls were also Celts. It gets very confusing. Frankish peoples, a Germanic tribe, took most of what is now the Netherlands, and the Frisia took the northern bit and then disappeared north. And then later Frisians moved in, who were unrelated to the Frisia from before. But the Franks eventually conquered the Celts that were in that area and became a very large empire. The Holy Roman Empire was started by the King of the Franks in Italy, when the Pope decided that the King of the Franks was the Roman Emperor somehow. While lots was going on in this huge Frankish kingdom that extended from near the Netherlands to Italy, the Franks and Frisians on the coast of the Netherlands were being raided by Vikings. One of these Vikings, Godfred from Denmark, took control of Frisia and became Duke of Frisia by force with the approval of the Emperor Charles the Fat, great-grandson of Charlemagne. Gift Rush 2! Which one was that? What was Gift Rush? Ah, the jumping and duck. Gift Rush 2! The same thing, at night. I think this is the same game, except at night. Maybe it's faster? Maybe it really makes you feel like Batman. I don't know. Polar Cross 2. Now with more ice. Ice and danger. I nearly got hit by a train. I love sequels. Give me your money, you stupid gift-wrapped money box. What do I need it for? I'm going shopping. I can't cross the ice. Not if it's all moving at the same speed. What a stupid ice flow. Now I have to wait for 2 in a row because I can't jump diagonally. I'm not a clever snowman. What? Oh, something original. Icicle toss. You throw sharp icicles at moving targets in a strange darts game. What's really weird is the scoring. It's very delayed and very inconsistent. That shot was worth 2. Some shots are worth 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 or 30. One of them was worth 28. I don't understand that one. And this shot there, takes a while for the score to come in. 60 points. I suppose if I could get one through the ×5 ring, it would be even more. And this next one, is that 5 or 10? 1. 1 point. There's no way of guessing how many points you'll get for something. What's that one? 30? 25? What will the next shot be worth? See that target? Hit the edge. So is that 1 point? No, it's 11. I have no idea. By the 12th century, the not well recorded Old Dutch language has turned into Middle Dutch and is spoken by some people of the counties of what will today become the Netherlands, but is currently part of the hundreds or thousands of counties and kingdoms and prince-bishoprics and margraviates of the Holy Roman Empire, which is very impossibly complicated to draw, so that's why it's just a scribble here. I gave up trying to understand it when I got north of Italy, and I suggest you do the same thing. Now, if you skip ahead a few centuries past the Black Death and the construction of many castles, the Holy Roman Empire is still too complicated, but all of its various tiny counties and things are starting to stick together through the wonders of marriages and royal inheritances, like a board game, except the results concern the taxation of tens of millions of serfs. This is the Burgundian state, including the Burgundian Netherlands, and Burgundy, and some other bits. This later grows into the larger Burgundian Circle, one of the first 6 circles of the Holy Roman Empire, but don't worry about that. These lands pass from Charles the Bold to his only daughter Mary, who marries Maximilian, the King of Austria, and pretty soon the Netherlands belongs to the Habsburgs, who also own Spain, and lots of other places. The Imperator Romanorum at the moment is Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, Archduke of Austria, King of Spain, Lord of the Netherlands, Duke of Burgundy, King of all of Italy except for Milan, etc., etc. He abdicated shortly before dying and split his land holdings between his brother Ferdinand and his son Philip II, and this led to problems eventually. Meanwhile, aboard the cheaper Polar Express that doesn't have Tom Hanks, behind the 22nd door, we have Holiday Adventures 5. 5. They made a 5th one. Why? What compelled such a thing? Come on, a collection of 25 minigames, and you make 4 sequels to the first one in that? Okay. I was having some problems with Holiday Adventures 5. What on earth is going on with the movement? Was my first thought. Is this a feature? Do I have to trudge through this blizzard and the wind stops me from advancing? That's going to be a real problem for climbing this wall. Then I found out. What completely breaks most minigames is having a second controller turned on. Because you can play the game with 2 controllers, even though you only ever play with one at a time, but it reads inputs from both simultaneously. So the second controller being in a neutral position makes it impossible to walk. Just turn off your second controller. Now I know that. With that problem out of the way, Holiday Adventures 5 is still, naturally, the most difficult, most intense of these holiday adventures. Which makes sense, of course. This is the finale of the holiday adventures. It's got to have some climactic triumph over nature feel to it. You have to defeat the worst of weather. This intense flurry of snow just gets more and more strong as you play. There's more icy obstacles, which thankfully you can destroy with the flying pickaxe. It was a very impressive pickaxe. And turning platforms, snow cannons, it's got a bit of everything. And then you just freeze to death. How's that for a feature? There's a time limit, but no timer you can see, you just need to outrun the weather. And if you're going fast, you'll probably fall on something. So it took me a few tries. Now thankfully, if you're killed by something else, like an ibuprofen, you go back to a checkpoint instead of running out of time. But then you're using lots of time, so you'll probably still run out of time, unless you run really fast like I did here. I got stuck in some ice, but that's okay. The platforming is very normal. Over this bit of ice, make a blind jump over here, you'll probably miss the thwomp, which is not really a thwomp for legal reasons. Run down these blocks, and then it's just a few more jumps to the finish line. Not really, it's quite a long way away. I don't know why I didn't freeze to death this time. Is it random? Is there actually a timer involved? Because this was a much longer attempt than the attempt that froze me to death. I have no idea what the trick to it is, but I've beaten Holiday Adventures 5 now. Good. So, why are the Dutch orange? Because in 36 BC, some Romans named an area Arausio after a Celtic water god. And the name gradually shifted to Orange, or orange in English, even though it has nothing to do with the fruit or the colour which is named after the fruit. What does this have to do with the Dutch? Nothing. Nothing at all, yet. So we go to Nassau, which is in Germany. It's a castle. This also has nothing to do with the Dutch. Until, eventually, a Count of Nassau and a Princess of Orange get married, and eventually their lands pass to William of the newly established House of Orange-Nassau. who is later known as William I of Orange-Nassau, William the Silent. Prince William I of Orange was also stadholder of Holland and Zealand. Oh, and his aristocratic family now used the colour orange, since they were named after it. They weren't really named after it, but since it had the same name, they're orange now. There's a Dutch uprising, and provinces rally to join the prince. They support the prince's flag, the first tricolour flag ever used by a nation. This is before national flags, and really the whole concept of countries was even really a thing. But anyway, that's why orange is the national colour of the Netherlands. That's also why orange is the colour of the Protestants in Ireland. It's also why the place in New South Wales is called Orange. Loosely, it's because of a much later king of the Netherlands. So the Dutch soon changed their flag to red, white and blue because it's not all about the princes, you know. They're a republic now, a Dutch republic. The 80 Years' War comes to an end at the same time as the even more violent 30 Years' War that the Dutch and English and French and everyone else was also fighting in at the Peace of Westphalia. The Spanish kept the Spanish Netherlands and recognised the Dutch Republic, which could now fully focus on having a golden age. Back to the games. Holly Jolly Slices 2. Hey, that's Holly Jolly Slices 1. Ah, that's better. See, the difference here is there's a new background.
This is the same game.
The Dutch had a nice golden age in the 1600s, with great art and nice hats, windmills to help pump out all the water of their low-lying land to make polders, klompen, wooden shoes to wear in those polders while doing farming, and poffertjes actually came in the 18th century, but I put them here because they're the most important thing the Dutch ever did. Well, there are other important things. This golden age was sponsored by spices, which were serious business in the age of sail, hard to get and worth a fortune. The spice must flow. So, the Netherlands' spice trade-based economy meant the establishment of a Dutch East India Company and a Dutch West India Company to go and plunder the East and West Indies and engage in the spice trade and, yeah, also the human slavery trade that sort of made the whole spice thing work. On a happier note, cheese. The Dutch made some great cheese, and they still do make good Edam, Gouda or Gouda, and Maasdam, which is a much newer cheese. It's not contemporaneous with these people. It was only invented in the 20th century. Going back a few centuries, Jan Pieterszoon Sweelinck was a master of keyboard compositions. His music is really good, but very overlooked. And while the Dutch West India Company were busy repeatedly invading Brazil and trying to take it over, and when they finally got it, they found it was too hard to manage, so they traded it with Portugal in exchange for most of Sri Lanka, but not the middle. Weird story. The Dutch East India Company were repeatedly visiting Australia, going on board and saying, oh, this place isn't very interesting, and then going home. The first guy to do so in 1606, Willem Janssen, failed to notice that there was a Torres Strait and thought that when he was in far north Queensland he was just in a massive extension of New Guinea, which made maps a bit strange for a time. And better Dutch cartographers came along. Abel Tasman is who we named Tasmania after. He did a lot of charting of the coast. But the Dutch never made any claims of Australia besides sticking a pewter plate to an island off the coast of Western Australia to say that they were there, because they didn't want Australia because it had no spices. Clearly the Dutch never found the delicious bush tomato. Bobsleigh Relay 3! Another new bobsleigh course! Well, how is it then? We've got to be thorough in this review. It's taken an incredibly long time, so how is it this time? Bobsleigh Relay 3 features a course with a very impressively tall mountain. Look at that wall of snow texture. And other mountains that disappear and reappear strangely due to draw distance. There's these nice arches. I like it. It has the aesthetics of the Grinch 2000. It's probably the only thing I like about it. Oh, the course design's fine. There's not a huge variety of bends. They're mostly got the same sort of camber. But, really scenery and object placement is all that really matters. These arches help keep the player visually interested. The different coloured stopwatches do something probably. And this is a really impressive, huge bridge. It's so wide. Is it a dual track rail bridge, or? I really wonder about this because I couldn't see the bridge from earlier in the course. And now it's over and we crash into the snow wall. Well, it's better than falling off a mountain. And now it's time for the last of the Dutch history bit. The Dutch Spice Empire and vast colonial holdings didn't last, except for a couple of islands like Sint Maarten. And the Netherlands was briefly conquered by Napoleon and became part of France. But it came back, and today it's a world leader in making Grolsch beer in swing-top bottles, which very sadly they stopped sending to Australia around 2021, but thankfully the Germans picked up the slack and started exporting Flensburger in swing-tops. But what's really important is the Dutch. Right, what am I talking about? Dutch people invented telescopes, microscopes, the Philips Corporation that has played a huge part in inventing just about every storage medium yet. Tapes, CDs, DVDs and so on. But I'm not here to promote Dutch inventions. I'm just interested in the trivia and the history of it. What's most important about a nation is not the food it takes national pride in, but its people. So when you think of the Dutch, you won't just think of wooden clogs and windmills and poffertjes, but Rutger Hauer, Max Verstappen, Famke Janssen, Paul Verhoeven, Dutch Pilot Girl, and André Rieu. That's the Netherlands. People who've contributed to art for the benefit of society. And cheese. And this cheese who was painted by Floris van Dijk, who was a great artist of cheese. For Snake of Bacon, you have to finish the video. What are you doing? The final door. For Christmas, it's Cocaine Peanuts. It's not Cocaine Peanuts. It's a sequel game. It's Snowball Blast 2. So, can you believe it? You probably can believe it. It's not as if this was a high quality collection. It's entirely expectable that it would end with Snowball Blast 2. Essentially the same game as the 4th game in the calendar. Your 25th door for Christmas Day is Snowball Blast 2. Why? Why not save something good for this? You could have put a little car game here, or did we need that to keep players going? In hopes that there'd be something else good later on. Why give us the same game from 3 weeks before? Better question yet, why am I playing it?
I like games.
I don't know if I like this game though, and I still don't know why this was chosen for the finale. Probably the worst game in the collection for Christmas Day.
It's an interesting choice. Not interesting to most people. I find it interesting in the same way that if you wear a brightly coloured polyester shirt, you end up with brightly coloured polyester navel lint the first time you wear it. Like just a big clump of red or blue fluff in your belly button. But it only usually happens once, and then after the first wash you'll never get that much coloured lint. I did a thesis on navel lint.
So, is that over and done with? Can we leave? No, there's one more thing. Oh. There's a leaderboard. At the end, you're given a tournament score, a time. 3 minutes, .42 was my score. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that is the total of. It doesn't seem like that would be all of my timed scores put together, unless you then subtract seconds for points in other games. I don't know how it's calculated, and it's of no use to you unless you and a few other people play all 25 games to get tournament scores, and then you can see who's the best at something. At least there's leaderboards for the other games. You know, that's a basic feature that could have been left out, and I'm glad it was put in. For a quick recap and review of the game's soundtrack, you're hearing now a generic smooth jazzy piece, which is by far my favourite. This here I've listed as, since I can't find the music credits, generic plucky orchestra piece. Not to be confused with this here, generic strings and glockenspiel Christmas piece. Neither of these last two pieces really appeal to me. I find them quite repetitive. Generic twangy guitar piece is probably the most inoffensive of the bunch. Really, it's twangy guitar and piano. And the piano's quite pretty. Note how different the music feels when the piano's not playing. Even here it's just adding little stabs and twinkles, which is another category of music. When the piano stops and you're left with only twangy guitar, it becomes flavourless, insipid, commercial. In fact, it's one particular type of commercial. You close your eyes, you listen to this music, and you see two men, neighbours, suburban neighbours, standing near a fence, and they say, "Oh, life's good, you know. The kids are enjoying summer, and couldn't be better." It's times like this when I think I should really get funeral insurance. And just like that, snap, I'm out of it. I'm out of my bad free-to-air TV dream. Now I'm in the much worse scenario of having to hear this rendition of Carol of the Bells again. It's a fine Christmas carol, but this version is just so droning and repetitive without the nice vocal harmonies, and with it being by far the loudest track on the soundtrack, it's really quite grating on the body, mind, ears and soul. Merry, 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 go away. Okay, now the bonus games. You said the bonus games? Yeah, there's not 25, but really 27 games if you count these two arcade machines like Bauble Shooter. Oh, well actually there's only 17 games if you don't count the 10 duplicate games that were sequels, but yeah, look at Bauble Shooter.
It's quite a charmless clone of Puzzle Bobble. This imitation misses out on some of the difficulties presented by Puzzle Bobble levels.
Yeah, there's pretty much no challenge and nothing interesting to it, much like the other games in the collection, but I guess it wasn't good enough to make it onto the main roster. The other bonus game is titled Christmas Match 3. Match 3. Yet another tile sliding game, bejeweled clone, whatever you want to call it.
Well, if you're going to call these Match 3 games bejeweled clones, it'd be more correct to say that they're clones of the original progenitor of that, which would be a Russian MS-DOS game called Shiriki, which means buttons. But buttons clones or Shiriki clones is not a very useful term, so I think Match 3 games is probably still the term to use.
Thank you again for useless knowledge as always, Mr. Brain. Yeah, it's Christmas themed Match 3. You can tell it's Christmas because there are big candy canes in the snow, which is what people always do, right? They don't make small candy canes and eat them or stick them to envelopes to give to people. No. They just plant the sugar out in the snow, so the reindeer can have something to lick, you know? Oh, and there's 2 presents under one of those trees. 2 wrapped presents out in the snow. Alright, that snow's going to wet the paper. It's going to ruin the presents, make them all soggy. Unless they're very strong gifts. I mean, no, the paper will still be ruined. I mean, my point is, no innovation has happened in the Match 3 space since that Gems of War game, which was a little bit of this, plus card collecting and insane microtransactions. Really, if you're not innovating new ways to suck money out of the customer, is there anything fun you can do with Match 3 at all? No, you can just match 3 or 4 or 5. The gameplay of this genre peaked with Bejeweled 2, that's it. In conclusion, if you're Dutch, I'm sorry for misrepresenting you and your people with this game. I know the Dutch gaming industry has produced better things, like Horizon Zero Dawn. Also, if you're Dutch, geef een like, reageer, abonneer en deel. Games Advent Calendar 2024 is a package put together with very little care, containing a bunch of games that would not hold up to scrutiny against free flash games that I played in high school. I didn't go through this whole experience alone. I played a few of the levels with my brother, and There's entertainment in that, but you can enjoy any bad game with good company. I really don't know how I could give it a buying recommendation. Obviously, if you've seen it and you like the look of what you see, go for it. Why not? Go do your thing. You like Christmas games, and if you like this, you'll probably really like at least 50% of all games ever made. It does cover a fairly broad selection of the oldest immortal classics, just slightly ruined for Games Advent Calendar. You know, you've got your Pong, you've got your Donkey Kong. It could be a bit of fun nostalgia for the oldest gamers amongst us to share with the very youngest. You know, that could work. So, if you're looking for something to buy around Christmas 2025 when it goes on a really low sale on PlayStation Store, if it hasn't been removed for legal reasons, and you are a grandparent with small grandchildren, you want to teach them how platformers work, yes, I found the perfect use case for this game. It's really intensely specific. SnakeOfBacon signing out. I am so glad I finished this video. I would have rather have finished these 6 videos before the end of last year, but oh well. It's the year of the snake. Anything's possible now. In 2025, in SnakeOfBacon's Review Season 5, we're going to go through actual good games, believe it or not. Also, more weird filler stuff like this, but shorter episodes. This was an unusually long one. I don't know what happened. Everything spiraled out of control. I do really intend to review Marvel at Up Ultra. Not everything you see here is indicative of what's coming next exactly. Astrobot, eventually. Fast Penguin, eventually. I'm really just filling in time to get the exact timestamp I want. There it is. Bye.